All right, so this is 10.1, and so essentially we are moving on to chapter 10, and it is all about circles. So we're going to talk about the different aspects of a circle first. So we have chords, diameters, radiuses, or radii would be the plural, secants, and tangents, all right? So a chord is a segment with both endpoints on the circle. So there's a couple really important factors about that. There's one is the segment, and a segment is a line that has endpoints, has two endpoints, and the word on. So for this whole chapter, on means on the edge. So if I say something's on a circle, it's on that outer edge and not inside, all right? So a chord is a segment with both endpoints on the circle. So like right here, this is an example of a chord. This is also an example of a chord, a diameter. It's a specific type of chord. It is a chord that contains the center. All right? So I could draw an infinite number of chords, but if it goes through the center, then it's a diameter. It's also important to note that that is the longest possible chord. All right? All right, so we also have the radius. That should be something we're familiar with. It's half the diameter. So it's a segment that has two endpoints on the center and on the edge. So the radius is a segment with endpoints on the center and the edge. So that's half the diameter. Okay? And then the two more are types of lines. So we know lines go forever in different directions. So a secant is a line that intersects a circle at exactly 2 points, all right? So why is exactly important there? Well, it's important because if it misses it entirely, it's not intersecting it at all, it could touch it in one spot and move on. We want it to intersect at 2 spots. So the reason why that's different than a chord is because it goes off, it doesn't have endpoints, it's a line, okay, versus a chord is a line segment. So a secant intersects it at 2 points. A tangent is a line that intersects a circle at 1 point. And that is something we call the point of tangency. So that is kind of an important term to know. So that's called the point of tangency. All right. So here, this tangent, it's passing by, it's touching it at one spot, and it's touching it at the point of tangency. Okay? So that is the basic pieces of a circle. And now we're going to talk about intersecting circles. So intersecting circles, there's 3 options. They could intersect at 2 points, 1 point, or 0 points. So if there's 2 points of intersection, they're going to overlap just like that. If there's 1 point, one could be inside the other, so they're just touching at that one edge, or they could be separate circles and touching somewhere like that. And this is something we call tangent circles. So So circles are tangent to each other. And then there could be no intersection at all. They could be apart, they could be inside. This is something specific. This is called concentric circles. Concentric circles, and those are circles that share a center. So you could keep drawing circles bigger and bigger if they have that same center. You could have an infinite number of concentric circles. All right. And then the next part is about tangents. So tangents, like we said, are lines that are going to go through and touch it at one point. Common tangents are tangents that are tangent of two circles, okay? So a common tangent is a line or segment that is tangent to two coplanar circles. We haven't talked about coplanar in a while. If you remember, that just means you're on the same plane. This whole chapter is going to be coplanar. We're not going to talk about 3 dimensions. So you could draw a tangent that's going to touch both, but there are 2 types. There are internal tangents and there are external tangents, okay? So a common internal tangent is a common tangent that intersects the segment that connects the centers of the circles. So it connects the centers of the circles. What do I mean by that? Well, so let's say I have this kind of line there. It doesn't have to be drawn, but the common internal tangent would be, so it's tangent to both of these circles and it goes through. So it would be something like that. So there are 2 common internal tangents, so they're gonna go between the circles. That's a terrible drawing, but you kind of get the gist, and they intersect it at those points. And then you have your common external tangents, which are common tangents that do not intersect that internal segment. Okay, so let's say I have this invisible line. The external tangents are going to be the ones that are kind of going on the outside. So they're tangent to both the circles. They're intersecting them at the points of tangency, but it's not going in between. So those are the 2 different types of common tangents, internal and external. So how many common tangents do the following circles have? So we got to think about common tangents and so internal and external. So here I have 2, they're non-intersecting. So how many are those going to have? Well, for internal, you have 1 and 2. So that's 2 internal. For external, we have 3 and 4. So there's 2 of each, which means there is 4 in total. All right, so those would be non-intersecting circles. Now I have circles that intersect once. So for internal, I could actually do right there, kind of in between the 2. So that's 1 internal And just like before, the external, there's 2 of them. So that's going to be 3 total. And then finally we have these 2 circles. They intersect at 2 points and they overlap. So there actually isn't going to be an internal one. There's no line you could draw that could be tangent to both. So all I can do is have the 2 external ones. All right. So that is the first half of 10.1. I'm going to pause the video. That case, if I mess up, I have less to redo. So I'm going to kind of record these in 2 parts. All right. Part 2.